daisy chains. Can't seem to recall my true given name. I see my footprints, how they come, how they go. Was that yesterday, or only a moment ago? My heart is gone. I've gone cold. My heart is gone.
Welcome to the social-engineer.org podcast number 77.
Number 32.
And Dave is here for, his once every other month showing.
For 10 minutes.
Right.
He won't be here for the whole podcast, so don't worry.
Why'd you start the podcast when I said I was about to eat a cookie? I'm like right in the middle of eating a cookie. But the good news is that I always have a backup plan like this.
Oh.
Michelle's shooting poison daggers at you.
I think Michelle is so filled with rage, she's not even speaking.
This lets me eat my cookie and listen to Bruce Hornsby at the same time.
Let's talk about... Dave, actually, it's been a while since you called us from somewhere weird, like, with your wife giving birth or having an EKG done, or something like that.
Operating theater.
Yeah.
Like had just been electrocuted.
I'm actually calling you from the headquarters of Binary Defense Systems. Nothing spectacular.
But that's not anything,
I am, however, just in boxers.
Oh,
so,
well, that's good. Thanks. That keeps it to the
Do they know that?
I mean, there's no dress code, so it's all good.
He owns the company, so I guess it doesn't really matter.
No dress clothes.
Michelle, quickly, let's bring this back to something relevant. What do we...
Sure, we can give that a shot.
Well, our first podcast of 2016.
Yay!
Yay us. Yay podcast.
Yay!
What do we got going on? Let's see. We have a bunch of stuff that we got to talk about. We got training coming out of our ears. Let's see. We have our Advanced Practical SE course in Orlando, February 1 through 5. There's a few slots left there. Then we have our first ever master's level course. That is sold out completely.
What does it really mean, master's level?
Well, I don't want to give it all away, but I will give you a little teaser. So that took us a couple years to develop because people have been asking for the next level of course after APSE. So we actually are doing a week-long live SE pen test on real people in Orlando. So the people that signed up for that have to be graduates from our first course. It cannot just be the public. And then they're going to come in and we're doing everything from phishing, break-in, impersonation, the whole 9 yards. Everything's happening the whole week. So,
and while this sounds like really organized and well put together, we did actually map out this course on a napkin, literally.
What we did.
In Baltimore.
That is true. That is true. The original idea came while eating with Robin Dreek in the UK. And then that was written on a piece of paper that was like a ripped up receipt in my pocket. I took that, and a year later, Michelle and I sat in Baltimore in the Inner Harbor eating oysters and planned this whole course out on a very large napkin. That napkin turned into this course. I think that's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
So I'm excited. That's going to be one time a year. We're only offering that one time a year because literally once it's over, we'll talk more about it, but it is probably the most ridiculous course ever. There is brilliance here, but it is like a mad scientist just entered my office. One who also enjoys scotch way too much. I don't have enough room for all the bottles anymore, so they're just everywhere.
I thought this was supposed to be PG.
What's wrong with scotch? I'm not drunk. No, that's because you own the scotch doesn't mean you're drunk.
Chris, I cannot believe that you're joining the podcast drunk. Oh my gosh, guys.
I'm not even drinking. If you want to see what other training we have, go to social-engineer.com, go to the events or training page, and there, it's all there. Done. Okay, we're done. What else do we have going on?
Well, so I just have a question. So if I don't play Bruce Hornsby, but I play Tupac's Changes, which has the same kind of beat, is that better or worse?
You can't even understand what he's saying.
I'm not really into rap, so...
Not everyone knows.
It's the same beat as the Bruce Hornsby the way it is, but it's Tupac Changes. So we can jam with Bruce Hornsby at the same time listening to Tupac.
So let's talk about the summer that's coming up very quickly, even though it's only winter. It will be here upon us DEF CON. I literally have people asking when they're going to be able to sign up for the CTF and the CFP. That is coming up. That was coming up, actually. It should be this week. As you're listening to this podcast, we will be launching our CTF page and our CFP page. So be ready for that. That will be exciting. That's in August. Let's get the exact dates because Ping's about to ask. Do you have the exact dates, Michelle?
When will the CFP close?
Well, just so we know, DEF CON is August 4th through August 7th. That is the dates. Now, when will it close? So we're opening the CFP on probably next week, January 15th. That's the proposed idea. We will leave it open, and I know you're going to hate this, Ping, but it's going to be sometime in March.
All right, so everyone keep looking for social media announcements and on the website for when it closes at the beginning of March. But just assume you better get your stuff in by the end of February.
Yeah, really, please do. Last year it was quite extensive how many people we had.
Last minute.
And I'm sure Dave and Ping, with your experience with these, you have worse stories than we do, but it was pretty hard at times when you got people with the speeches and you have hundreds to review. And Michelle and I did read some as they came in. And the hard part is that I thought one of the highlight speeches from last year was about tying Shakespeare into social engineering. That speech came in a little bit later in the process. And then we had chosen a speech, but that was like really last minute. But then her speech got canceled because China wouldn't give her a visa to come into the country, into America. So I don't know if we have much else. Derby, what's the dates?
I can't believe you just put me on the spot for that, Chris.
Well, it's your con. I just figured you would know.
It is September 23rd, 24th, and 25th is the actual conference dates. And obviously training will be 2 days before that. So the 21st and 22nd will be training. 23rd, 24th, and 25th is the actual conference.
And when is everything opening for that, like the CFP and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, generally we open up like sponsorships and tickets and things like that around March, April timeframe. And then a little bit after that comes the call for papers. So, April, May, we'll probably start to open up the call for papers.
Awesome.
Everyone needs to jump on his registration as soon as he opens it because it's usually sold out within the first month, I think.
Yes, it is. Yeah. We'll sell it usually within the first month or so. Training's been going by very quickly as well. So, I'd rather, we'll try to get the training things out ahead of time, so you can make your decisions and whatnot. But training and tickets have been selling out pretty fast. So definitely recommend getting your tickets, not waiting.
I agree. Last year, I think our course sold out like in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, yours was really quick. Like all of them sold out really quick, but yours was just, I don't want to give you too much ego, but yours actually sold out especially quick. So
we still haven't beat Corland. Corland, like that guy, I think he's probably sold out before he even like puts it on the site.
Yeah. Corland's very quick. Yours was very quick and a few other ones, but yeah, definitely.
And those guys that sign up for Corland, they just enjoy pain and suffering, I think.
Well, honestly, they can be misconstrued as a zombie and starting the zombie apocalypse because their brains are literally dead and they're just walking around just, hey, I need to get from this point A to my pillow for 15 minutes so that I can at least get 15 minutes of sleep before I go back into my course again. It's always fun to watch them.
Yeah. So, okay. So we got DEF CON, DerbyCon training. I can't think if there's anything else. Anything Payne going on in your life that you want to share with the universe?
Black Hat will be making its announcements as an opening registration, I believe, January 18th. So you will see whether or not Chris and or Dave will be offering their class there.
When do people who submitted find out if they were accepted?
But you have to wait until Black Hat opens their registration.
Oh, and when is that again?
January 18th.
January 18th.
So you'll know January 17th.
So that's actually coming up. It's a week after this podcast gets released. So that's not too terrible.
Yep. And the call for papers for Black Hat.
In 10 days or 9 days, basically.
Within 9 days, within a week. And then the Black Hat call for papers will be opening, I believe, the first weekend in February. So anyone who wants to submit to speak at Black Hat, that's when you do it.
Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you, Ping, for being an awesome person that takes time out of your day to also help with Black Hat, contribute to Black Hat. It's very appreciated.
Wow, I almost feel like there's going to be some kind of request here. I don't.
I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted to give Ping a compliment for the awesome person that she is.
Thank you.
Most of the time.
I think it should be noted that, prior to the podcast starting, Dave has tried for probably 15, 20 minutes straight to pry out of Ping whether or not we're all going to Black Hat.
Yeah, he tried everything, like from SE to schmoozing to insulting to threatening. It was quite.
Yeah, he was going to
brutal.
send me a gift. He was trying to bribe me.
Yes, he was trying to bribe you with gifts, and then he threatened you with gifts that fling feces at you.
And then he threatened us all with Bruce Hornsby.
Yes.
Listen, I don't understand why this is all attack.
He's such a bad citizen.
Because this is unfair to me.
Oh, I think anyone who listens to the show, anyone who's been to one of our courses knows that I'm going to say we, the collective we, we're fans of Clutch.
Yep.
So we have Neil Fallon coming on the show again. Really excited for this one, of course. Everyone can make fun of me because I'm in a fangirl out with Neil. But
Chris is actually wearing a dress and a wig.
And I have pigtails. So I can scream like a little girl when he comes on. He does have a great voice. He's even more sultry than Michelle.
No, I'm not arguing, man.
I was going to say scream like a little girl
it.
isn't nice.
Why is that not nice?
Boys scream too.
Well, they do, but not usually as high pitched.
Do they scream pretty high pitched when I'm destroying their soul?
Well, okay, that's true.
Grown men.
So I'm going to scream like a little boy who's having his soul destroyed by Ping. I don't even know.
Perfect.
Okay. Neil Fallon. Neil, how you doing, buddy?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm good. Good, man. So before we get into all the juicy stuff, how's the tour going with your new album?
Well, we've been kind of grinding it out over the past year. Well, October really is when we started touring for Psychic Warfare specifically. Of course, we were on tour before that, but we are currently taking January and February off. We're going to go to Australia in March and then back on the road for the foreseeable future after that.
Yeah, what did you say? You're going to Australia for like a week?
It's 4 shows. And it's,
Oh, you're not even going for a holiday?
No. It's just,
I was like, great, you're going there during their summer. You can take some time off, and you're like, 4 shows.
Yeah, it'll be just enough time to like acclimate oneself a bit and then back home. So, but if that's all I have to complain about, that's a good thing, I guess.
That is a first world problem, right?
For sure.
So you're going from Australia though, then back to America?
Yeah, we're going back to the States. We're going to do a tour in springtime, and then probably take some of the summer off because we're going to Europe in August and do all their festivals over there, and then probably do another headlining run, in the fall, and then another Christmas run. So I more or less kind of know what I'm doing for the next 12 months, which is a nice thing.
You're going to put Vegas in there, come hang out, right?
Of course.
Yeah. I'm going to keep trying. That's just all there is to it. I'm just going to keep trying, and someday our schedules will align.
It does happen, but, I kind of have to basically be told what to do. I mean, booking a band is no easy task. There's so many variables that go into where and when you can play, but I'm sure it'll happen. We'll just keep the faith.
Yeah, it will. And we're constantly growing, helping at least a little bit, little minuscule bit of growing the fan base. A lot of people now are telling us that they love you guys and listen thanks to the podcast and the classes and stuff. So
thanks for the promo.
Oh, not of course, man. We discussed this already. The first time I saw you, I was like 18.
Oh God.
Yeah, but I think we were like the same age, so.
Yeah, the first shows we did, I was 19. I mean, most of the bars that we played, I couldn't drink at. You have to put X's on my hands, not by choice.
Yes.
And but that, it was I look back and I kind of ask myself, what the hell happened? I mean, it's been 25 years. I wish I'd been writing everything down. It's been quite the experience.
Hindsight is always, right? You think, boy, I wish I could have, if I just kept that ticket stub. But who would have known that we'd be sitting on a podcast together talking about psychological things, 20-something years later. So, let's see. We have 2 topics I wanted to talk to you about.
Okay.
Because, of course, we could talk about your music all day long. But you probably do that all the time on every show. So we want to take it back to the last time you were on. We had a really interesting thing that turned into an actual newsletter and a blog post, believe it or not. your whole discussion about your olfactory senses triggering adrenaline when you go do a show. That actually turned into something pretty big for us. We actually discuss it now in courses. We talk about that. We did some research into it. Michelle, of course, I would say we, but it was mainly her. So the we, collective we, is Michelle. She's the researcher. And so this time, I thought was interesting is we had a chance to come see you in Philly, down in Philly just a couple weeks ago. And after the show, you were saying that every now and then, not every now and then, when you're up on stage singing, you kind of look into people's nonverbals and see how they're reacting, see if they're into the show or they look like they're not into it, if they're angry, if they're happy, if they're bored, which I can't imagine, but all of that. And then you react to that. So I thought this would be a great topic since nonverbals is one of my favorite things to talk about.
Sure.
So first of all, I think one of the things we got to start off with is how, like how. So you're in front of thousands of people. You're focused on singing and putting on the show, and now you're looking out in the audience and you're reading people.
Well, I guess it sounds more difficult than it actually is. I mean, we've been doing this a long time, and a lot of these songs, I don't even think about what we're doing, and that's actually a problem because when I start daydreaming like that, that's when the train wrecks happen. So when I find myself thinking about something unrelated to the here and now, I have to remind myself that stay on target, for lack of a better phrase. But it does happen. I think muscle memory is great because you can kind of get in that zone and just get your flow going, but that also gives you the luxury of thinking about something else. And more often than not, it's about what's in front of me, and that's the crowd. I was thinking about our conversation that we have. I think we started talking about crowds in general, and I do believe there is something of a hive mind with crowds. I mean, the crowd has its own collective personality, and it can be very positive, very negative. I can tell if we're in a town that has a particular, is it a drinking crowd? Is it or is everybody in the crowd high? If we're in Colorado, or is everybody on speed? Not everybody. I mean, that's not fair. But you can sometimes get a personality from the collective that gets amplified and exaggerated because of the environment. And that's not every night. It's usually in the more extreme examples of those things. And then looking out into the crowd, sometimes it's much easier to dial in on the person who's not having a good time than it is the people that are having a good time, because I guess they're the minority, and two, negative energy is always much more pronounced and grabs attention much more quickly than a smile a lot of times, because maybe it's a threat aspect of it. Sometimes I think people go to shows with the sole purpose of not having a good time. It's a weird psychology. I mean, you always see that person who goes to the comedy show who all they want to do is try not to laugh. Same thing happens in rock shows. You see the person who's already made up their mind, and I think this happens it could be with any band in any genre. They're going to be there for, ulterior purposes. And sometimes I find myself focusing in on those one or two people. And that's not a good thing because they're such a small minority that it kind of poisons the well. But it's hard not to focus on those people because of their body language. Then I realize there's also 1,000 people behind them who are having a good time, and I try to sing to them and not the asshat.
So let's focus on the first group one, not the guys who were coming because they want to wreck your life, but you look out and you see some people who maybe aren't having the best time. How does that affect you now up on the stage, knowing that you're there to make them have a good time?
Well, I also, I got to remind myself that I have no idea how their day went, or, there's a backstory, behind everybody, other than the 90 minutes that we're interacting. And sometimes, some people express good times in different ways. I mean, there are people whose idea of a good time is sitting there watching the band very clinically and then writing down every song on their notepad in their iPhone, and they approach it like a science project. That's not my version of a good time, but I can't. Who am I to judge?
Yeah.
So the people that aren't having a good time, there's not much you can do about it. I think I used to take it personally much more. To do it night after night, you can't take it personally. All you can do is offer it up and hope that there's plenty of other people who you can't see who maybe weren't having a good day. Now they are, and you're the cause of it. And that's a pretty good feeling.
Yeah, that's got to be a good feeling. So now this may be putting you on the spot, but are there certain things you look for to determine that difference if someone's just there taking it clinically or if someone's really having a bad time? Or
Well, there's always the girlfriend that the boyfriend forced to go to the Clutch show and they're never having a good time. But you can always see the guy, who's standing front and center with his arms crossed.
Huh.
There's a personality type that wants to be seen, and they're not content with standing in the wings. They want to be right in the middle of the pit if that's, what happens to be going on, or just kind of in the center of it all with their arms crossed. And that's the guy who's already decided he's not going to enjoy his time there and wants the world to know it, especially the band. But I have a feeling he probably, he or she spends most of their free hours doing that in, different iterations. I'm sure they go online and complain as soon as they're home.
That does seem like a weird psychology, though, because first of all, you're spending your money to go to a show, and then getting up front and center is not the easiest thing at these shows. So now you're pushing your way through these hordes of people to stand there and be ticked off.
Yeah, I think that's just the personality type, and they probably spend most of their time doing just that. I also really have to remind myself that the front row of any crowd, they're the closest physically to the band. So you get a lot of detail in their expressions. But the thing is, they're usually the most exhausted because, one, they got there first to be in the front row. They were there at doors at 7 o'clock. The band doesn't go on until 10. So they've been standing there for 3 hours. They haven't had anything to drink because they don't want to give up their spot. They haven't gone to the bathroom. And now there's a mass of people behind them, pushing them up against the barricade. I don't hold it against them for not smiling because I would be pretty miserable too. So I don't think that the front row is not a very good litmus test for the atmosphere of the crowd in general.
Yeah, so you gotta kind of look past all of that and not get yourself focused on maybe some bad nonverbals that would affect you.
I think so, and I think there's also just a very practical explanation beyond that is that the lighting in a club is usually that front row is easy to see because there's lights behind the band that illuminates that front row, and 9 times out of 10 you can't see anything but silhouettes beyond that, except for those 1 or 2 odd people who happen to be standing underneath a light. And that's almost its own show for the band. I mean, we can see kind of a anonymous sea of shadows, and then there'll be that person who's dancing or passed out, and they just happen to be under a light, 500 yards back. It's pretty theatrical from our standpoints at times.
That's actually a pretty interesting thought because as an entertainer, you're playing to the audience, and we communicate as humans with nonverbals, and now you're kind of cut off from that except for that first row because you can't really see anyone in the back. So how do you get into that role? How do you keep yourself? I mean, because you're playing like a show every night for sometimes like 3, 4, 5 times a week. How do you keep that energy level up and feed off the nonverbals when you can't see them?
There's a couple of things I tell myself. Is one, for example, we just did a show in Cleveland at the Agora, and it's absolutely massive, and it can be hard to manage because you have so much to look at. I tell myself to treat it as if it were a small nightclub because, one, that's our comfort zone, and 2, people will respond to the intimacy of that even if they're on the balcony. You can't try to address everybody in a 5,000 capacity room as if they were in the front row as well. The other thing I tell myself is there's probably plenty of young people who are seeing the band for the first time, and we only have a chance to make that first impression. You don't get a do-over, and they're going to make their call about you and your band based on that performance, and really that's what matters most. Records are great, but for a band like us, it's really about getting up on stage, and there's a level of human interaction there that I think we kind of treat as sacred ground, and it needs to be treated with a lot of respect, and don't call it in under any circumstances. Even if you're having a bad night, you still gotta treat it as if it were your first or your last show.
How many years now have you been doing this?
August will mark 25 years.
Wow, really?
25 years as Clutch. I mean, there were some high school manifestations of this band that, thank God, didn't occur in the age of the cell phone.
There's no video proof of that?
Actually, there was one video of we played the Seneca Valley High School senior picnic, and my sister recorded over it with Santa Barbara or some terrible 80s soap opera.
Oh, no.
Which I was mad at the time, and I do wish I could see it, but I would probably do it with one eye closed.
I do have a question though. So how long were you performing before you started to notice some of this, I don't want to say anomalous, but weird behavior? Like personally, wouldn't take the time or energy to go to a place to stand there and, not enjoy my time. I tend to go to events that I want to be there. So how long do you think you were performing before you started to notice this? Because I'm pretty sure, I mean, it's a process, right? Initially, when you first start performing, you notice less things or different things.
Yeah, I mean, the first, at the get-go, it's always starting out, you're kind of a deer in headlights, and you're just trying to remember parts, and, I was just throwing it over the fence to see where it landed. But I think to find those people in the crowd that body language is, I think that was pretty easy because it transcends, it's beyond just rock and roll. It's that person in the crowd is always going to stand out regardless of what you're doing. I'm not trying to paint it out as like an FBI profiler. I think that's just human nature. When you see that person that, for whatever reason, just makes you take a second look. Like, what's that person's deal? And it can be very intangible, but it's usually just body language.
I kind of get that though. I think all of us. I mean, Michelle, Ping, we've all had chances to speak in front of crowds, and I don't know about you, but my first time getting in front of a crowd, I was not thinking about looking at their faces. I was not thinking about watching body language. I was happy if I didn't puke, and if I can just get through the speech and get off the stage, And now, after years of doing it, now I'm much more relaxed up there. So I feel like that relaxation gives me more freedom to do those things, to look at people and to react to them and to be more dynamic.
Yeah, I mean there are sometimes very inexplicable episodes of stage fright, and I couldn't tell you why. Just suddenly, like before a show, I'll get in a panic mode. I couldn't tell you what triggers that. I mean, it doesn't happen that often, but I think practice gives you the luxury of being relaxed because you know what you're up there for. If you remember a speech or you remember your song, then you can actually have fun. And I think that can't be underestimated. It's just having the fun aspect of it. Because if you're just trying to reproduce what you rehearsed exactly the same, then you're never going to be happy. You have to kind of be in the moment and be able to adapt and have fun.
I agree with that 100%. 25 years you've been doing this coming August. Now, would you ever think that there'd be a time where the name Neil Fallon would be in a Psychology Today magazine?
Never in the circumstances of an interview, maybe more of as a case study.
Okay, that's fair. That's a fair answer. And yet it was just last month in December where I'm reading through Psychology Today, and I get to see this guy do an article on the universal truth of Clutch's Neil Fallon. And I'm like, What is going on here? I just got to ask, how did that even come about? How did that even happen?
That came about. I think he just reached out to our press agent, if memory serves me correctly. I was stoked about it, because usually, it's a metal magazine who wants to hear the crazy road story, which is usually a lie,
Yeah.
you know, because we lead pretty unexciting, rock lives compared to a lot of other bands, and that can become stale. So it was cool to do something that was coming from a different angle. It was actually pretty challenging to talk about because I don't think about the band and what we do in those terms necessarily. And it's a good exercise.
Yeah, I do have to say that that's probably true with you, right? I mean, your backstage is never nuts. It's
No, we're too lazy for that.
it's a bunch of guys sitting around with scotch glasses, talking about nonverbals.
I, I'm all right with that. It's
Yeah.
I think one of the reasons we've been able to do it for 25 years is we've always drawn a distinction between on stage and off stage. I mean, you can act like a lunatic on stage and put on a good show, but as soon as that encore's done with, then everybody's putting their pants on one leg at a time. And I've seen bands and personalities who do not draw the distinction between on stage and off stage. And well, one, it's annoying, and two, it's just got to be exhausting
Yeah.
to be on stage 24/7. You got to have your dividing lines between that. I think your personal life would suffer and your stage show would suffer because you can't distinguish between the two.
I have a question that's a little bit related to that, and I think it's interesting that you brought that up, this sort of celebrity and kind of what you have to do to get around it to live a normal life. Part of what we do is sometimes play people that we're not, to get into places that maybe we're not supposed to be. I'm curious if you have any interesting stories of people who have gotten backstage, say, Chris Hadnagy, by doing or saying something. To get back there and get to meet you, or the converse of that, have you, because you're a family guy and you like to go to Staples and do whatever, is there anything that you have to do to kind of maintain your anonymity, short of wearing a Groucho Marx, mask or whatever, to go to Staples and be able to do that and live a normal life? So I guess I have kind of two sides to that question, but it's kind of an interesting social engineering topic because this is your life, not even just the work.
Well, I do think anonymity is an asset that you never really appreciate until it's gone. You see people who, like, I want to be famous or I want to be a celebrity, and those are usually people who never are. And let's put it in context too. I mean, I'm not Bruce Springsteen. I don't walk down the street and have everybody point and say, "Hey, that's so and so." But I've had little tastes of that where I've been, at a restaurant or a Home Depot, and a complete stranger has, said, "Hey, aren't you Neil Fallon?" And it's very off-putting to suddenly realize that this person knew who you were and you didn't know who they were. And 9 times out of 10, it's very casual, and I deal with it as just not seeing it as a confrontation and just being as polite and as gracious as I could be, because these are people too, just like myself. I will say, Dave Grohl had a comment about this that I thought was, pretty insightful. Is a mutual friend had asked him, don't you get sick of just getting hounded all the time? You can't even go to the bathroom without somebody wanting to shake your hand. And his response to that was, I'd be much more upset if that stopped happening, because that's how he pays the bills. That's his living. And it goes with the territory. I mean, sometimes I'm jealous of bands like of Tool, who are very anonymous. They didn't never really attach their faces so much to their band, whereas some bands, that's all it is. I definitely do not hunger for fame. I think it's kind of gross, but I don't know there's much you can do about it in such a visually and socially oriented, world, social media, that is. I would draw the line, if I felt somebody was interfering with a family event. If I'm by myself, it's no problem, but for my wife and kids, that's my wife and kids, just like anybody else.
On the flip side of that, Do you have any fun or interesting stories about fans trying to get backstage and doing or saying?
Sure. I mean, there's always some jokers that get backstage. To them, that's what the show is. And with Clutch, they're usually disappointed. There's the idea that backstage is some kind of bacchanalia, but it's usually 4 or 5 dudes sitting staring at their feet, listening to the Allman Brothers, eating guacamole. Not very exotic. People do lie. There's a friend of mine who will remain unnamed got backstage to I think it was a Ben Harper show by telling the security guard that he was the 10th caller.
Huh.
It was so ridiculous. The security guard, just got a beach ball face and said, "Okay, hey, head on back." And sometimes, they just want to be there and hang out. Sometimes they're there to cause problems, and that has happened. And there's been physical confrontations because that was the person's MO. We're not a band that has security with us, but the club usually does, and it's those are always the exception to the rule, really.
There was a crazy story recently of this guy who was a big fan of this one band, and he went on to their Wikipedia page, and he edited the Wikipedia page and put his name as one of the brothers of the lead
the family
singers,
member. Yeah,
right?
I remember that.
and then he went to the security guy and he said, "Oh, hey," and he started walking. The guy's like, "Hey, who are you?" And he's like, "What? You don't know me?" The guy's like, "No." And he opens up the Wikipedia page on his phone and says, "That's me." Pulled out his ID, and the guy goes, "Oh, I'm sorry," and let him in the back. And the band let him stay, and they tweeted it and everything because they were like, "That's such a crazy story that worked," you know.
So I guess the larger a band or artist, the more chances you have of attracting those people. And it is a bit spooky when somebody gets it in their head that they have a personal relationship with the band or the artist, because music is a very personal thing and it affects people emotionally. But it's a one-way conversation that sometimes some people mistake as a two-way conversation, and they'll force that on the artist. And it's weird because you never really know what to say beyond your lyrics or your riffs or your chord progressions, because that's all there was at the beginning. And sometimes in people's heads they get basically an imaginary friend.
Yeah, that has to be a little hard too, especially like kind of bringing it back just quickly to that Psychology Today article where talking about how music can be a release and an escape from the stresses and pressures of reality. And if people are using Clutch as that escape, you can become like somewhat of a savior through bad times.
Well, that's one of the most gratifying things to do as a musician or any artist, I would suppose, is to meet somebody and say, "Hey, I was going through a very particularly hard time in life, and you helped me through that." That's invaluable. I mean, that's much more valuable to me than selling the person a CD.
Yeah.
Not saying I don't want to sell the guy a CD. Sure, buy two, but to know that not to get too philosophical, but to spend one's time on Earth to do more good than bad. I think that's really all. That's all one can hope for, and to try to continue to do more good than bad, especially with somebody you never met, and it's a pretty good feeling. Sometimes I'm thinking about some of my more buttoned down conservative relatives who think of me as like, "Oh, that's the cousin in the rock band." You must be on drugs. You get that, and that's fine. But I know that our music that I've made with my buddies from high school has helped people. There's kids I've met, and I say kids that went off to war and said, "Your music got me through that. Thank you." What else can you ask for? I mean, to me, that's the holy grail of music.
Yeah, it's got to feel really good when you know you had a positive effect on somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and that kind of was the nature of that article. That Psychology Today article was about how many people use different things for escapism, but music is one of those powerful things that has been used throughout time.
maybe it's, having done it 25 years or, and gained some perspective, is that I try to keep in mind that people are so kind of have such blinders on about technology that, MP3s or streaming, and we think of CDs as being antiquated. They're not antiquated. Even vinyl records aren't antiquated. Radio is antiquated. They're all very brand new things that are just used to deliver something that is prehistoric. Playing music for people is hundreds of thousands of years old, and that'll never go away. So when I get up on stage with the guys, I kind of consider it as a participating in a human sacrament. And this is something that our ancestors did millennia ago in caves, and it's really no different. It's just the delivery method has been changed, and I feel very fortunate to be able to do that for a living. I mean, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, that is kind of cool. And this is the podcast to get philosophical, so you can feel free to do that anytime you want. So let's do this, because you got a kid waiting for dad and some Legos, and that's a really important thing. We hate to.
He's got a lightsaber now that he's waving very menacingly at me. So,
well, at least it's not the coat hanger anymore.
Yeah, we moved on to it.
Yeah,
Watch it.
Now he's using the Force.
Yeah, he's got it in spades.
Yeah, of course he does. So, if people want to follow you, we always do this. People want to follow you. We got your Twitter down, Clutch Official. I don't know if you want to give out your. I mean, it's public. If you want to give out your personal Twitter.
Oh, it's N as in Neil, P as in Patrick, Fallon.
Okay, so people can follow you there. Your website, if they want to check out tour or the new music.
Yeah, that's prorock.com, pro-rock.com. And that has all the tour dates. That's where I go to find out where I'm going.
Okay, I want to laugh because that happens to me all the time. When I have to figure out where I'm going for training or speaking, and I go to my own website and look at our events calendar, and then I know what's happening next. I'm not the only one, Michelle. You see?
No. I wish I had it all, in my brain, but lucky where I'm going later on this afternoon.
Yeah, I'm with you. Well, we know where you're going. You're going to Staples again.
More paper.
More
paper. Okay, last question, man. A book. We always ask everyone who comes on, a book that they've read. Doesn't have to be about security or anything. Just a lot of our listeners love to read. So we always ask what kind of book maybe you're into now.
The last book I read was that really kind of split my wig was Child of God by Cormac McCarthy. It's incredibly violent. So if you can't stomach, gore, it's not a good book, but he's got a way of writing the most beautiful prose and then inserting some of the most mind-bendingly horrific scenes that you can imagine. So if that, sounds like a good thing for people, I would highly recommend it.
I'm a big fan of Cormac McCarthy. I love that book.
Oh yeah, it's. I can't believe it came out in 1973. It really must have freaked people out.
That's old.
There's another book just started that may interest your listeners called Imaginary Cities. It's about the psychology of space and the creation of the idea of a city, and whether it be real or imagined. And the name of the author escapes me right now, but the name of the book is Imaginary Cities.
Not a problem. I'll look them both up and put Amazon links to them. I can't thank you enough for your time, Neil. As always,
sure.
Fascinating.
Thanks for the Glendeveron. It was delicious last night.
Okay, I know you're not done with it yet, right?
No. Well, I'm well on my way.
Okay. Like it's a 1 liter bottle, man. So.
Yeah, I noticed that. I was like, man, I'm not really making a dent in this. And then I remembered, it's a liter.
That's because it comes from Amsterdam. It came from overseas, so it was you could get a whole liter there as opposed to the smaller bottles here.
You can have a metric hangover.
Yeah. There you are. That stuff is the best, though. That really is good stuff. You're welcome.
Hey, sure. Thanks for having me.
I have to say, that we just hung up with Neil, and before he left, we had a little conversation, and he also told us that we need to stop with the Bruce Hornsby.
No
Listen,
Hornsby.
he did not say we need to stop the Bruce Hornsby.
He was of the opinion that maybe we could do something different.
You see, Neil Fallon. I think that weighs in at more weight than everything.
It does carry some weight, I have to say.
Neil Fallon.
You know what, guys?
I mean, Dave didn't say one thing the whole podcast. Then he comes on and plays Bruce Hornsby for Neil Fallon. Okay, people.
But you know what? Now he's like all quiet and he sounds like his feelings are hurt, and now I feel bad.
Yeah, Michelle.
I mean, just like listen to that whipped
Maybe
puppy
if he
voice.
was in the athletic cut.
He's
Listen,
working towards
the same tailored fit is better than the athletic cut. Okay.
Oh, Dave, we love you.
Love you too.
You know, I tell you, we get ratings on iTunes, if you can believe it, and people will say routinely that they love when you're on the show because of our banter back and forth, and they just want us to keep the introduction shorter. That's it. That's our biggest complaint. You know, well, I say, you know what? They can fast forward if they don't like it, you know, and listen to just the guest. That's fine if they want to do that, but then they're going to miss out on all the fun.
Especially episode number 32.
Yeah, episode number 32 was a good one, but this is number 77, since it had Neil Fallon saying that we should stop with the Bruce Hornsby.
He did not say we need to stop with Bruce Hornsby. What he said specifically, and I quote, I feel sad when I listen to Bruce Hornsby.
He said his music is so sad. And then when I said, well, Dave plays at every podcast, he went, why? Exactly that.
That's actually true.
Yes.
That's actually
so that to me is an endorsement to stop, I think.
But he didn't directly state no Hornsby.
Well, I think it's implied when you mention something.
But he didn't specifically state you can't you're not a lawyer.
Well, I'm not, but if you said to me, "Hey, Chris, let's go out to dinner. Let's have a sea cucumber," and I gagged, you would assume that I'm saying no, I don't want it because I'm now vomiting in a can. I don't have to say no, Dave. I don't want to eat that most disgusting creature. You would assume I don't want it, and that's basically what Neil just did. He gagged when we said that.
All right. Hey, everybody. It was a great podcast. Do you have any other announcements?
No. Yeah, we're going to do our closing. Okay. So I don't have anything to say except that was a great podcast. And
it was a podcast. Neil is awesome. And I have to say, he is an amazing singer.
He really is. Yeah. I love seeing those guys live. But I cannot believe it's been 25 years.
Chris, I'm going to put you on the spot. What is your favorite Clutch song? And Dave, I'll give you some time to think about it too. So.
Okay, so I have. Can I choose more than one?
Yeah, you can.
So, of course, "Gone Cold" is one of my favorites. That's why we use it for the podcast.
Sure.
I love that song. But off of the Pure Rock Fury album, there's a song called "Sink 'Em Low," and that is just an amazing song. And then "Burning Beard." Those three have to be my all-times.
Okay, Dave.
Wait, what was it?
Do you have
all-time
a favorite Clutch song? All-time favorite Clutch song?
I mean, I think anything off of like the Pure Rock Fury.
Oh, yeah, that album's just phenomenal.
Is probably my favorite. That's probably my favorite album altogether. So like anything off of that.
That is one of those albums where I can just kind of replay it multiple times.
Yeah, like I think what was it? American Sleep.
Oh yeah.
Frankenstein, Drink of the Dead, or Drink to the Dead.
That song is great.
Yeah, I like them all. I like them all. That whole album to me is one of my favorites. Jam Room's also really good.
Jam Room is phenomenal because that was like I think that was just a bunch of like B-sides put together or something.
Yeah.
Actually, there's no album that I hate from them.
No.
There's none.
No, and you know what would be even better is if they did like a tribute to Bruce Hornsby and put it in the Clutch music. Then I can play that all the time.
Oh man, I tell you, that is a terrible idea. And based on Neil's reaction, I don't think there's a chance that will ever happen.
You're always negative, Chris. Ever since I've known you've always been negative in always saying never, like using hard words like never or appalling. Like when I showed you two horrible sites, you're like, "This is appalling," and I want to punch you. Like, I don't understand why you're so negative.
Oh man, Michelle,
yes, Chris.
help me. You're supposed to.
I don't even know what to say.
You're supposed to be my right hand.
I'm here supporting you from the West Coast.
Can you throw a shuriken at Dave from Seattle?
I can, but I'm not going to promise on my range at this point.
She's my sniper, by the way. If you want to follow Michelle, she now has a Twitter account. It's Sultry Asian on Twitter. I think.
Thanks, Nick.
Yeah, Nick Hitchcock did that. Thanks, Nick. We appreciate it. We also have our corporate SOC Engineer Inc. and, of course, Human Hacker. And Dave changed his Twitter account. Hacking Dave.
Well, my Twitter account's been Hacking Dave for like 3 years.
Yeah, but you changed it 3 years ago. Dave's Twitter account is now Human Hacker. If you want to follow Dave, come to Human Hacker. Okay. Steal some of your Twitter followers. And we have social-engineer.org is the free informational site. Social-engineer.com. If you're still on IRC, you're irc.freenode.net, channel social-engineer. Episode 77, 1st of 2006, and it is done. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
See ya.
Swan boats and daisy chains. Can't seem to recall any given name. I see the footprints, how they come, how they go. Was that only a moment or many years ago? My heart is gone. I've gone cold. My heart is gone. I've gone cold. My heart is gone.